Hello guys and welcome back. If you are new around here, I cover mostly Australian cases and today we're covering another solved case which, let me tell you, has been a mind-boggling one to research. Anyway, before we get into it, I want to thank today's wonderful sponsor for supporting my content again, and that is A Function of Beauty. And if you've not yet heard of Function of Beauty, they're a hair care brand that I've been using since about late last year. That is completely customizable. What you do is fill out a super quick 2-minute hair quiz that allows you to choose options that target your specific hair type and goals. So if you've ever struggled to find a product that targets all of your hair problems, which I know I definitely have, you're going to really appreciate this. So for example, the hair goals I chose were to deep condition, strengthen, hydrate, thermal protect, and replenish my hair. And I chose these options specifically because honestly, I've been thrashing my hair with heat styling tools lately and my hair has had better days. I've also been using the hair mask weekly, which, like the shampoo and conditioner, is customizable and perfect for hair that is dry, damaged, or needs a little bit of extra TLC. And I only started using the mask around a month ago, and combined with using the shampoo and conditioner, it has honestly taken my hair to the next level. It has been feeling so soft, softer than it has in so long, and I've also noticed that the frizz has really settled down, which I am stoked about. They also have hair serums and leave-in treatments, which I'm definitely going to have to try out next. As well as being able to customize the formula, you're able to choose the color, the scent, and the name on the bottle, which I think is a super cute touch. I have a Function of Samantha written on mine, and I chose the scent Nude Peach, which leaves a beautiful fruity scent lingering in my hair. And I chose the colour orange honestly because it matched the scent peach. The shampoo and conditioner also come with 2 little pumps if you prefer to use them, but I just prefer to use it with the lid on. And just an FYI, Function of Beauty are also free of parabens, sulfates, GMOs and toxins, as well as being 100% vegan and cruelty free. So if you'd like to try out Function of Beauty for yourself and support the content I make here, follow my link down below. It will be in the first line of the description and get 20% off your first order. Having said all of that, let's get into today's solved case. So we're heading back to the year of 1995 in Newcastle, New South Wales. There lived 24-year-old civil engineer Joe Cinque, who was born on June 11, 1971. And actually his name was Giuseppe, but everyone called him Joe. His parents, Maria and Nino Cinque, were Italian immigrants that had moved to Australia before Joe was born to start a family. Joe also had a younger brother who was younger by 4 years, named Anthony. The Cinques were a very traditional Italian family, eating and enjoying their dinner together every single night, discussing their day around the dining room table. Cooking was how Maria showed her love, and how the whole family came together as one and bonded and just enjoyed family time. So family was of course incredibly important to the Cinques, therefore keeping the tradition alive of eating together at the dining room table every night was really important to their daily routine. Growing up, Joe was not only very smart and very studious, but he was very much into his sports. He was also somebody that was always surrounded by a lot of friends. He had the kind of infectious personality that could just draw people in, and he had a great sense of humour. Joe would go on to graduate university at the age of 24 with a degree in civil engineering. And after graduation, and after taking a well-earned European holiday break, he scored himself a job as a project manager at a local engineering company, where he soon developed a reputation as not only a hard worker, but a friendly and easy to get along with kind of guy. So let's discuss the night that Joe met his future girlfriend. It was 1995 and Joe was enjoying a night out with friends at a club called The Brewery, where he met an intelligent and beautiful Indian woman named Singh. Anu was also a university graduate, having recently completed her Bachelor of Economics at the Australian National University in Canberra. Anu was visiting friends and family in Newcastle when she met Joe, but would soon be returning home to Canberra to continue her studies as a law student. So let's talk a little bit more about Anu and where she came from and what her upbringing was like. Anu Singh was born in Punjab, India, to two doctors, Paddy and Surinder Singh, and when Anu was 2 years old, her family picked up and moved to Sydney, Australia. Like Joe, Anu was very studious and very intelligent. But unlike Joe, however, who was someone that drew people in and easily made friends, Anu had a bit of a reputation for being a bit dramatic, a bit of a drama queen, which really drove people away. After finishing high school, Anu moved to Canberra by herself to attend university, but found the move more difficult than anticipated, and she missed her family terribly. As a result of Anu's homesickness, she turned to taking illicit substances to numb the pain and would soon make the decision to defer her studies to deal with her demons. Anu also struggled with her mental health, and by 1995, Anu's mental health took a turn for the worst, which is when she decided to make the trip to Newcastle to visit friends and family, and this is where she met Joe. But when Anu did meet Joe on their night out in Newcastle, she was actually in a relationship back in Canberra with a man named Simon Walsh. Anu started dating Joe behind Simon's back, but it didn't take long for Simon to find out, and he promptly broke off his relationship with Anu. And this breakup was said to have devastated Anu, causing her drug use to spiral along with her mental health. And also around this time, Anu developed an obsession with diet and exercise. She was always on some kind of fad diet. She exercised for hours a day, and she would tell friends, "I'd rather die than be fat." Eventually, Anu developed bulimia, which is when she made the decision to return to living with her parents, at least temporarily. But despite how unwell she was and how much her parents tried to persuade her to get help, she refused. During this time, Joe stood by Anu's side and was a doting boyfriend, assisting her as much as he could. Despite the support system around her, Anu never really did get better, and she never did seek professional help. By the following year, 1996, Anu was back at university in Canberra studying law, and her and Joe's long-distance relationship continued. And Joe was absolutely infatuated with Anu. Every weekend he would drive down to Newcastle to visit her in Canberra, which was not exactly a close trip. It's about 5 hours. He would leave on a Friday arvo and drive back early Monday morning, heading straight to work after the long drive. He was committed to making this long-distance relationship work out. And on the odd occasion, when Anu wanted or needed to see Joe during the week, he would promptly leave work and get on a flight to see her. However, Joe's family had started to worry about him and this relatively new relationship. At this point, Joe was still living with his family, and they saw a change in him that made them feel uncomfortable. And they felt that Anu had Joe wrapped around her little finger, and they warned him to not let this girl control him. But despite his family's warnings, by late 1996, Joe had made the decision to move to Canberra to be with Anu. This decision devastated Joe's family, who, as I said, were all very tight-knit. But he was a fully grown man and they could not do anything to stop him. And the reason for Joe deciding to leave Canberra and not have Anu come to live in Newcastle, despite the fact she had some friends and family there, was because Anu did not want to leave her current university. So Joe left behind friends, family and a good job and moved to Canberra, where himself and Anu found a place of their own to live in a duplex, even opening up a joint bank account. When Joe first moved to Canberra, Anu's mental health seemed to temporarily stabilise, perhaps because she now had somewhat of a caretaker, but this stabilisation would be short-lived. Anu's obsession with her weight continued. Her university attendance at this time also plummeted, and she really stopped putting in any effort with her appearance. Other uni students also noticed the change in Anu, describing her appearance as dishevelled, particularly in comparison to the girl that once took a lot of pride in her appearance. It was at this point that Anu finally began seeing a psychiatrist. When Anu was on her uni break at the end of that year, 1996, the couple decided to fly back to Newcastle to spend a few weeks with Joe's family. And although Anu was a perfectly polite house guest for the couple's entire visit, Joe's mum Maria just had a feeling something was off about Anu and that her son was not meant to be with this woman. It's believed that by the following year, 1997, Joe couldn't deal with Anu anymore for many reasons and had plans to leave her. Anu constantly craved attention. She was incredibly insecure and loved starting drama, but her issues went far beyond this, and they were far beyond what Joe was capable of helping her with. Anu's mental health struggles eventually led to her believing that she was incredibly sick. She believed she was suffering from a condition that ate away at her muscles, and she was also certain that she was HIV positive. When Anu went to the doctor about these conditions that she believed she had, the doctor, after conducting numerous tests, told her that she was fine physically, but psychologically, she needed help. Anu didn't believe the doctor though, convinced that she was still unwell with these various physical illnesses. In fact, she felt as though her doctor had failed her. So when Anu told her parents that she was sure that she was going to die or that she was dying, her parents tried to have her admitted unsuccessfully. I believe Anu had also pretty much given up on getting any psychological help at this point as well, or at least didn't believe that going to see a psychologist or psychiatrist could help her, because she truly believed that she wasn't well, so why would talking to a psychiatrist help this? Anu then shifted her blame from her doctors to her boyfriend Joe. Anu claimed that Joe had once suggested in a passing conversation a cough medicine that could induce vomiting called Ipecac. That's probably not how you pronounce that. Ipecac. Ipecac. Let's go with that. And this medicine could help her lose weight, since she was always complaining to Joe about wanting to lose weight. However, this point has been disputed, with Anu insisting it happened and Joe's friends and family saying they would never suggest that Anu take something that would encourage her to throw up to lose weight. But regardless, Anu began to despise Joe for suggesting Ipecac to her and was now convinced that this was the root of all her health problems. Around this time, mid-1997, Anu made a disturbing comment to a friend. She told the friend she wanted to go on a killing spree, killing her ex-boyfriend, her current boyfriend, Joe, and all the doctors that had not been able to help her. She then added she didn't think it'd be too difficult to convince people that she was insane. The friend dismissed the comment though as just being something typical for Anu to say. As I said, Anu was always kind of trying to start drama, saying things that would get reactions. This was just another one of those things, but this friend would be the first of many to dismiss Anu's comments or behaviour as being dramatic or typical Anu. By late October of 1997, Joe and Anu were still together, although Anu was sensing Joe was pulling away, and Anu's mental health struggles had not improved. They were so severe, in fact, that Anu had reached the point where she was planning to take her own life. And when I say planning, I mean she was literally planning it. She spent months down at her local library researching the topic of the right to die, with her close friend and possibly her only friend, Madhabi Rao. And I should add in here that one of the main reasons that she wanted to take her own life was because she genuinely thought that she was already dying. She physically could feel those symptoms, or at least she thought she could feel the symptoms of her insides being eaten away, or she believed that she developed AIDS as well. So she really felt that and believed it and thought she was going to die anyway. So that's why she was down at her local library researching the right to die, because in her mind, well, she was going to die anyway. So around this time, Anu also attempted to buy a gun, asking two separate people for help, telling them she wanted to end her life due to the pain she was suffering from the various physical illnesses she believed she had. Both of these people later admitted they thought Anu had been joking about needing a gun, again putting it down to a typical crazy Anu thing to say. So you're going to start really seeing a pattern of forming here, with people dismissing Anu as crazy, basically. Anu also began giving away her CDs and selling her clothing. And when her parents found out about this, they attempted again to get her hospitalised against her will, but soon learned that the application would need approval from a magistrate, and this was going to take some time. On Monday, October 20, 1997, Anu, with the help of her friend Madhabi Rao, held a dinner party at Anu's house, with the theme of the party being Anu's final farewell to the world. What's even worse was that the majority of people that were invited to this dinner party were aware that Anu was planning to take her own life. She had even told some partygoers that herself and Joe had a suicide pact, yet no one stepped in to stop her, talk to her, or call anyone for help. Again, given Anu's reputation for being melodramatic, the claims were not taken seriously, and many attendees simply turned up to the party out of sheer curiosity. Joe himself was not aware of the dinner party's theme, shall we call it, and at the dinner party the attendees described Anu and Joe as loving, a happy couple. Nothing seemed off, therefore no one concerned themselves with Anu's claims. By all accounts, it was a pretty normal night. People had fun, nothing dramatic happened, and everyone went home. The only noteworthy thing to mention was the fact that Joe felt quite unwell the next morning, which was a Tuesday, but he got up and went to work anyway, likely thinking that maybe he had a few too many drinks the night before. The next weekend, on Friday, October the 24th, Anu and Madhabi decided to hold another dinner party, again at Anu's house, and again Anu told party guests that she was planning to take her own life that night, and this was her goodbye. But no one took her seriously, considering at the first dinner party, where she said exactly the same thing, nothing had happened. And again, many people turned up out of sheer curiosity. And besides, they thought, who would be crazy enough to hold a farewell dinner party for themselves and tell people about it? They believed Anu was all talk and no action. And the second dinner party went much like the first. People ate, drank, Joe and Anu acted like a normal happy couple, but nothing dramatic happened and everyone went home at the end of the night. The following morning, a Saturday, Joe woke up feeling terribly unwell. And the next day again, Joe was still not feeling any better. In fact, he'd gotten worse. Joe was bedridden and unable to move. Anu finally called a friend, not a doctor or an ambulance, but a friend, and in a panicky voice tells the friend that Joe has overdosed on heroin and is vomiting up a black liquid, and adds that she was the one that injected the heroin. Anu's friend tells her that she needs to call an ambulance immediately, but Anu insists that she can't, telling her friend that Joe would be mad at her if she did. Her friend retorts back, well, if you don't and he dies, you'll be up for murder. So at around noon, Anu calls 000 requesting an ambulance. In the call, Anu initially sounds calm, telling the operator that her boyfriend has had a potential overdose. The operator seems confused by this description of the potential overdose, and then Anu follows up with, well, he's vomiting blood everywhere. Is that a bad sign? From there, the call spirals. Anu gives the operator a false name, calling herself Olivia, and gives the wrong address. Several minutes are wasted as Anu keeps changing the information she's giving the operator, but she eventually gives the correct address and an ambulance is immediately dispatched. When the paramedics get there, Joe is lying on the bed, naked from the waist down and unconscious, with brown fluid coming out of his mouth. And as paramedics work on Joe, Anu paces back and forth frantically. At one point, she even grabs a paramedic and tells him he had a lot last night. Tragically, nothing can be done for Joe Cinque and he dies. An autopsy later reveals that Joe died as a result of asphyxiation while under the influence of Rohypnol and heroin. It was found he had 0.7 milligrams per litre of heroin in his system. A typical overdose victim generally has between 0.2 and 0.5 milligrams per litre in their system, just to give you an idea of how big of an overdose this was. Paramedics called police to attend the scene as well, and it's not long before the frantic Anu is taken away for questioning. An investigation begins almost immediately. Joe has no history of drug abuse, no criminal record involving drugs, and no mental health issues, and not to mention he was young, fit and healthy. And yet, out of the blue, he apparently decides to take an incredibly large dose of heroin, enough to kill himself. It didn't make sense. During questioning, Anu tells investigators that herself and Joe had a suicide pact, but when investigators question why she chose not to go through with it herself and pretty much watch her boyfriend die instead over several days, she had no answer. Anu then admitted that she had given Joe 4 Rohypnol tablets, aka the date rape drug, on the Friday night, and took some herself before injecting herself and Joe with heroin. After this admission, Singh was charged with the death of Joe Cinque and placed into custody. However, police didn't believe that Anu was the only person involved in Joe's death. Anu's close friend, Melanie Rao, had spent months beforehand assisting Anu in planning various facets of Joe's death and what was meant to be Anu's death. But I'll get more into her involvement in just a moment. When police search Melani's house, they find Rohypnol, syringe packs, and some pamphlets that discuss drugs, veins, and arteries. Melanie Rao is also charged with the death of Joe Cinque. So let's go through what is believed to have actually happened leading up to Joe's death. When attendees left the party on the Friday night of the second party, Anu made Joe a cup of coffee. This coffee was laced with a hefty dose of Rohypnol, enough to knock Joe right out. And it had actually been Melanie Rao that was the one that had tracked down the Rohypnol for Anu to use. After this, Anu had plans to inject Joe with heroin, and Anu had gone to the trouble in the months leading up to Joe's death to not only track down heroin dealers, but took the time to learn how to inject it, even testing the drug on herself and on Melanie to see what effect it would have on both of them. And as heroin was not a drug she had dabbled in the past, she was curious to see what effect it would have on the human body. But it would not be until about 24 hours after Anu gave Joe Rohypnol that Anu would inject Joe. However, this was not the first attempt that she had made in injecting him with a very large dose of heroin. At the dinner party 1 week earlier, after lacing Joe's coffee with a sedative, Anu attempted to get some heroin ready to inject. But due to the drug being so concentrated, it became solid when cooled and Anu was unable to use it. And you may remember me mentioning Joe not feeling well after the first dinner party. Well, that was the after effect of the sedative that Anu had given to Joe, or I should say had put in his coffee without his knowledge. So the second dose of heroin Anu attempted was successfully injected into Joe. It's believed this dose was administered around 3 a.m. on the Sunday morning, and then she gave him a second dose around 8 hours later. And it's believed that Anu thought the Rohypnol and this first dose of heroin combined would be enough to kill Joe. But when he was still alive on the late Sunday, she panicked and injected him again. So Anu Singh had literally spent the entire weekend drugging her boyfriend and watching him slowly suffer and die over the course of a few days, and did not at any point until she called an ambulance intervene. I should also add that it is not believed that Madhabi Rao had any involvement in the actual injecting of the heroin. Not that that makes her involvement any better, in my opinion at least. She was fully aware of what was going to happen. And you also may be wondering why Madhabi would even agree to help Anu with her plan, given that by all accounts Madhabi Rao was an intelligent individual. Well, from what I read at least, Madhabi was, she very much admired Anu and looked up to her, and she was maybe even a little obsessed with her, under her spell, I guess you could say. And Anu could be a very manipulative person. She had a dominant personality, and it sounds like Madhabi was someone that could easily be swayed. Again, it's not an excuse for Madhabi, but just to give you a bit of insight. Another detail of this crime that deeply concerned investigators was the amount of people attending the party that were aware of Anu's intentions, particularly as many of the attendees were people from Anu's law school, so intelligent people who presumably know right from wrong, given what their chosen field of study was. I actually saw a few articles describing what happened as the bystander effect, which is when something terrible happens or is happening and many people are witnessing it, all assuming that someone else around them is going to step in or intervene, but in the end, no one does anything about it. It kind of seems like the most logical explanation here, to me at least. The trial, a trial by jury, started in Canberra on Tuesday, October 6, 1998, with both Anu Singh and Madhabi Rao standing trial together. However, after 4 weeks, the trial was abandoned. When the trial resumed on March 22, 1999, both Anu and Madhabi had their own separate trials, and both elected to have it be a trial by judge only. Anu was given the option of pleading guilty to manslaughter, but refused, maintaining that she was innocent. During the trial, experts said Anu suffered from depression, as well as having a borderline personality disorder, heightened by her bulimia and her drug abuse. Psychiatric treatment was recommended instead of jail time. But the fact that Joe's death was incredibly premeditated, and the fact that she waited so long to call an ambulance, was brought up to contest how stable her state of mind was. The prosecution argued that she had been mentally well enough to have the forethought to obtain the heroin, learn how to use it, obtain Rohypnol, and attempt to kill Joe not once but twice, using the same method. The prosecution also argued that if she had been as depressed as experts claimed she was, she would have followed through with taking her own life as well. Attendees of the party were also questioned as witnesses during the trial, and they were all asked the same question: why didn't they intervene? Many told the court they simply did not take Anu seriously, describing her as dramatic and psycho. It was not exactly made clear during the trial what Anu's motive was either, and quite frankly, I'm not sure that Anu herself understood why she did what she did. Two main motives were put forward, however. The first was that Anu believed Joe was about to leave her, which it appeared he was, and this infuriated her enough to kill him. The second was the fact that Joe allegedly suggested she take Ipecac, the medicine that induces vomiting, leading her to believe that this was the root of all her health problems, and she was so angry at Joe for suggesting this, she decided to kill him. During the trial, Anu's lawyers argued diminished responsibility on the grounds of her mental health. Another option her lawyers could have taken was to plead insanity, but considering, as I said, how well planned out Joe's death had been, they stood a better chance saying that her mental health meant that she had a diminished responsibility for her actions, rather than saying point blank that she was insane and did not understand what she was doing, because realistically it kind of seemed like she did. On June the 24th, 1999, Anu Singh was found not guilty of murder, but found guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter, on the grounds of diminished responsibility. She was sentenced to 10 years in jail with a non-parole period of 4. Taking into account the time she spent behind bars during the trial, after she was sentenced, she only went on to serve the minimum time and only went on to serve a further 18 months. The Cinques, as you can imagine, were devastated with this result. Joe's mother, Maria, shouted at Anu after the verdict was read, "Rot in hell, you bitch. Devil, she's a demon." Not only were the Cinques outraged, but the public was shocked and dismayed by Anu's light sentence. Madhabi Rao, who also pled not guilty, was acquitted of all charges. During Anu's time in jail, she was granted a day release so she could attend university classes and eventually received her master's in criminology. Not even kidding. In jail, Anu completed her PhD and in 2009 published a thesis on Australian female criminals. She also received psychotherapy and adequate medication in prison, and by October of 2001, Anu was released on parole, and to this day no one really knows why Anu did what she did, although she says she accepts responsibility for Joe's death. In an interview, Anu said, in response to this question, "I don't understand either. I was mentally unwell, and I still grapple with that. I grapple with the whys. I don't know. There's no rational explanation." Anu has also publicly apologised to the Cinques, but her apology was firmly rejected by Maria Cinque. And I would be incredibly interested to hear your thoughts on this case and your thoughts on the outcome. This case was seriously mind-boggling to research, and I really don't know where I stand. I try to think back to what things would have been like in the late 90s, a time when mental health was swept under the rug. Would things have been different for Anu and Joe today? And I don't like putting my own personal opinions into videos, but do I think that Joe got justice here? Abso-fucking-lutely not. But that is where I'm going to leave today's video. Thank you so much for being here and listening to Joe Cinque's story, and thank you to my wonderful channel members. You're all absolute stars, and again thank you to A Function of Beauty. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow the socials, and until next time, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.